Kitten is thrown into the lion's cage. What happens next shocked everyone. The morning sun cast long shadows across the San Diego Zoo's pristine pathways as Dr. Sarah Mitchell hurried through the staff entrance, her white coat fluttering in the crisp morning breeze. Her usually composed demeanor was replaced by an urgent determination as she clutched a manila folder containing the latest test results. The news wasn't good, and time was running out for their youngest resident. "How is he?" Sarah asked James, the senior zookeeper, who was already standing outside the specialized enclosure, his weathered face etched with concern. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you are watching from. Let's continue. Still refusing to eat, third day in a row. James shook his head, his eyes fixed on the small figure huddled in the corner of the habitat. "I've never seen anything like it, Doc. It's like he's given up." Max, a 3-month-old African lion cub, lay motionless. Max had never known warmth. Not the kind that came from a mother's embrace or the security of being surrounded by a pride. From the moment he had opened his eyes, the world had been cold, sterile, and filled with nothing but the haunting emptiness of his own loneliness. As a 3-month-old lion cub, Max should have been basking in the loving gaze of his mother or chasing the playful swats of his siblings. But none of that happened. His mother had rejected him shortly after birth, and the zookeepers could only watch in helpless sorrow as the young cub grew weaker by the day. His tiny body was riddled with bone fragility, a condition that made his movements stiff and painful, and his spirit, even more fragile than his bones, was slipping away. Max had stopped playing. He spent his days curled up in the corner of his enclosure, eyes half-lidded, barely responding to the people who came to check on him. It was clear to everyone that Max had given up. "I don't know how much longer he can go on like this," Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the zoo's lead veterinarian, said with a heavy sigh. "Max has no will to live. He's broken physically and emotionally." Zookeeper James, who had grown attached to Max over the past few months, shook his head. "We've tried everything, Sarah. His body is healing, but his heart—" He paused, trying to find the right words. "He's just so lonely. Maybe it's the isolation that's killing him." Dr. Mitchell stared at the cub from the observation deck. He was lying in the same spot he always was, unmoving, withdrawn. "What if we could give him someone, to help him find a reason to fight?" she said, her voice filled with uncertainty. "What if we could give him a companion?" James turned to her, his face a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. "You mean another lion?" Sarah shook her head. Something else. Maybe a different kind of friend." Dr. Mitchell's plan was bold, even radical, but she was running out of options. It was clear that Max needed more than medical care. He needed something emotional, something that could bring him out of the darkness he had retreated into. And that's when she thought of Luna. Luna, a tiny kitten, had been rescued just a few weeks earlier. Abandoned at a local shelter, she was no bigger than Max's paw, with soft gray fur and eyes that were wide and full of curiosity. Luna had quickly captured the hearts of everyone who met her. Despite her small size, she was full of spunk and bravery. There was no other word for it. Luna was fearless. The idea of pairing Max with a kitten seemed absurd to some, even outrageous. A lion, a fearsome predator, with a tiny, defenseless kitten? But Sarah saw something in Luna that made her believe it could work. If the lion cub was yearning for companionship, perhaps a creature as small as Luna, who had experienced her own sense of abandonment, could offer him exactly what he needed. When the moment arrived to introduce Luna to Max, the zoo staff held their breath. They had carefully prepared the enclosure, ensuring there was no way Luna could escape or get into danger. But there were risks, too. Max was still unpredictable, and they had no idea how he would react to the kitten. As the door to the enclosure opened, Luna bounded in without hesitation. Her tiny feet tapped across the ground with a delicate rhythm, her wide eyes scanning the unfamiliar territory. She stopped when she saw Max, a massive golden lion cub, laying motionless in the corner. Max lifted his head slowly at the sound of Luna's light footsteps. His eyes were cloudy with disinterest, But when the small creature approached him, something changed. His eyes flickered, his nostrils flared, and a strange pull tugged at his heart. The tiny kitten didn't flinch or cower. She boldly padded over to him, tail high, her little body a soft blur of gray. Luna stopped just short of Max's outstretched paw and looked up at him. The lion cub's golden eyes, usually filled with nothing but sadness, seemed to soften for the first time. Luna gave a single, soft meow, and it was as if the world held its breath. Max didn't move at first. He simply stared at her, unsure of what to do. But then, something remarkable happened. He shifted his body slightly, his large head tilting in curiosity. Luna, undeterred by the size difference, stepped closer and rubbed her cheek against his paw. It was a small gesture, but for Max, it was everything. The soft warmth of her body, the gentle pressure of her touch, seemed to reach a part of him that had been dormant for so long. The zookeepers watched in awe from the observation room, their eyes wide with disbelief. "I don't believe it," James whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "He's responding." In the days that followed, Max and Luna's bond deepened in ways no one had ever expected. Luna, with her playful antics and fearless attitude, became Max's source of strength. She would dart around him, climbing over rocks and leaves, challenging him to chase her with a series of playful meows and prancing steps. At first, Max was hesitant. His limbs were still stiff from his condition, and he didn't have the energy to engage. But Luna's persistence paid off. She would nudge him gently with her tiny paws, almost as if she were coaxing him out of his shell. Slowly but surely, Max began to respond. He stood up one morning, his legs shaky, but he took a few unsteady steps toward Luna. She seemed to sense his hesitation and stopped in front of him, her tail swaying gently. She mewed again, this time in a soothing, rhythmic pattern. Max, his muscles still aching from weeks of inactivity, lowered his massive head toward her and nuzzled her with his nose. The moment was quiet, intimate, and in that silence, the connection between them deepened. Sarah watched this from behind the glass, her heart swelling with hope. She had seen lions in the wild care for their young, but this was something entirely different. It wasn't just a bond of survival or instinct. It was a deep emotional connection. Max wasn't just following Luna's playful behavior. He was connecting with her. In the days that followed, Max became more active. He began moving around the enclosure with more confidence, his movements less stiff. He would follow Luna wherever she went, watching her with an intensity that made everyone realize how important she had become to him. Luna, too, had changed. She had started to sit by Max's side, purring contentedly as he rested his head on her tiny back. It was as if she, too, understood the weight of what was happening. Together, they were healing, both physically and emotionally. One evening, a sudden storm struck. The winds howled through the trees and the sky darkened with the threat of rain. The zoo's animals reacted to the change in the atmosphere, their instincts alerting them to the incoming danger. Max and Luna were no exception. Max, who had never been comfortable with loud noises or thunderstorms, stood stiffly in the center of his enclosure. His body tensed, his wide eyes filled with uncertainty. But then Luna appeared beside him, as if sensing his discomfort. She didn't run for shelter like the other animals. Instead, she moved to Max's side, her small body pressing against his side in an unspoken act of solidarity. Max looked down at her, startled by the kitten's bravery. Luna was a tiny creature, but in that moment, she was a pillar of strength for him. As the storm raged outside, Max instinctively curled around Luna, his body providing her with warmth and shelter. For the first time, he wasn't just the one seeking comfort, he was offering it. The storm passed, but the bond between Max and Luna had been solidified even further. The following day, zoo staff couldn't believe their eyes. Max, the once lonely cub, was sitting in the sun, his eyes bright and alert, with Luna curled up in his lap. The two of them looked like a picture of perfect harmony, an unlikely pair, yet undeniably inseparable. Word of Max and Luna's incredible bond spread like wildfire. The zoo was inundated with visitors, all eager to see the lion and the kitten who had become an international symbol of the power of unlikely friendships. Scientists and animal behaviorists visited from across the globe, intrigued by what they had witnessed. Could this bond be the key to understanding deeper emotional connections in animals? But amid the growing attention, Dr. Mitchell never lost sight of the heart of the story. It wasn't about the media or the research. It was about Max and Luna and the love they had found in one another. She made sure that their relationship was never treated as a mere experiment. To her, it was a testament to the depth of emotion that animals could experience, a lesson in empathy, companionship, and healing. Max, the lonely cub who had once been on the brink of death, was thriving. His once shiny coat gleamed in the sun, and his steps were more confident than ever. And Luna, the tiny kitten who had offered him her warmth, had found not just a companion, but a protector, a friend, and a soulmate. In the end, it wasn't just the lion who had been saved, it was both of them. They had saved each other, teaching the world that even the most unlikely bonds could create the most extraordinary transformations. If this story moved, you don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like for more inspiring stories. Like this one, we've prepared a special playlist with equally heartwarming tales of extraordinary animal friendships. Find it by clicking the link to your left, join our community in the comments below, and share your thoughts on this remarkable journey of friendship and love together. Let's celebrate the magic that happens when we open our hearts to unexpected connections. See you in our next story.